Welcome to the Vault, XL. Hope you all are having a safe weekend. This commentary is pertaining to the Lori Vallow Daybell trial. New information has been relayed pertaining to secret emails that Lori sent to Chad. You will hear a detective testify in court pertaining to these emails, text messages between she and the late Charles, her last husband. A deadly affair. Lies that eventually led to the murder of four innocent people, including two children. I will be bringing you said commentary pertaining to filicide, stats. What drove this woman to orchestrate the deaths of her husband and her two children? You will hear this detective testify of the said information of a deadly entanglement that all four of these people had. The late Charles, the late Tammy Daybell, Chad Daybell, and Lori Vallow Daybell. Thank you for your time. All chats and stickers are welcome during the live stream. And if you'd like to donate to this great network, $McAngie 129 Cash App. The source is Wikipedia. Filicide. Filicide is the deliberate acts of a parent killing their own child. The word filicide is derived from the Latin words filius and filia, son and daughter, and the suffix "cide," meaning to kill, murder, or cause death. The word can refer to both the crime and the perpetrator of the crime. Statistics. A 1999 U.S. Department of Justice study concluded that mothers were responsible for a higher share of children killing during infancy between 1976 and 97 in the United States, while fathers were more likely to murders of children aged 8 or older. Parents were responsible for 61% of child murders under the age of 5. Sometimes there is a combination of murder and suicide in filicide cases. On average, according to FBI statistics, 450 children are murdered by their parents each year in the United States. An in-depth longitudinal study of 297 cases convicted of filicide and 45 of filicide suicide in the United Kingdom between 1997 and 2006 showed that 37% of the perpetrators had a recorded mental illness at the time. The most common diagnoses were mood disorders and personality disorders rather than psychosis, but the latter accounted for 15% of cases. However, similar to findings in a large Danish study, the majority had not had contact with mental health services prior to the murders, and few had received treatment. Female perpetrators were more likely to have given birth as teenagers. Fathers were more likely to have been convicted of violent offenses and have a history of substance misuse and were more likely to kill multiple victims. Infants were more likely to be victims than older children. And a link to postpartum depression was suggested in this commentary if you need to verify this through Wikipedia. Hello, Don. Hello, Leslie. Thank you so much. Types of filicide. Dr. Philip Resnick published research on filicide in 1969 and stated that there were 5 main motives for filicide, including altruistic fatal maltreatment. This is the unwanted child. Acutely psychotic and spousal revenge. Altruistic killings occur because the parent believes that the world is too cruel for the child or because the child is enduring suffering, whether this is actually occurring or not. In fatal maltreatment killings, the goal is not always to kill the child, but death may occur anyway. And Munchausen syndrome by proxy is in that category. Spousal revenge killings are killings of children done to indirectly harm a domestic partner. They do not frequently occur. Glenn Carruthers, author of Making Sense of Spousal Revenge Filicide, argued that those who engage in spousal revenge killing see their own children as objects. And when we look at this story of Miss Vallow and the two decedent children, obviously that is how she saw JJ and Tyler. They were mere objects. Children at risk. In 2013, in the United States, homicide was in the top 5 causes of deaths of children, and in the top 3 cases of death in children between 1 and 4 years old. A direct correlation has been identified between child abuse rates and child homicide rates. Research suggests that children who are murdered by their parents will physically abuse victims prior to death. We did not hear of any physical or verbal abuse pertaining to the children, to my knowledge. And as you have heard Ms. Kay Woodcock testify in court this past week, she spoke in a positive light of Lori Vallow despite the disgusting deaths orchestrated by she and these other cohorts, Chad and the brother and the niece. I believe the niece is also involved. But she spoke of her in a positive light. She felt this lady was a good person, that she went to church, she and Mr. Charles, that she would be a good mother to JJ. And they asked for this boy child. Let's always remember that. They asked for this boy child. So what happened? Was this an act of listening to rhetoric from Chad Daybell? She was already mentally disturbed, had some type of mental disorders, as you hear in this commentary by Wikipedia. She believed the lies that he fed her pertaining to this doomsday second coming. They were the chosen ones. So which is it? A mentally disturbed woman, easily manipulated, cruel and vicious and evil, and nobody ever knew that she was, pretending to be happy-go-lucky mother, wife, but was not happy, was not satisfied as a person, a human being, a parent, a lover, mentor, friend, Christian. Was she living a double life? Is it possible that Lori Vallow Daybell was not happy? And that's what she'd been searching for all these years, moving from place to place, as you hear her son mentioned in commentary that I brought to you about the son. They never stayed in one place at one time, which is a bad sign when people move around a lot. But of course, everyone moves around for different circumstances. But was there something mentally wrong with her? She couldn't sustain a place. Is it possible that she could not sustain a job? Because we do not hear much about her work history. Choosing the wrong men, perhaps, or a combination of both. Bad men, a bad Lori Vallow. 4 husbands, 2 dead children, 2 dead husbands. And let's go back in history. When I've done my research, another husband died of a heart attack. Will we find out that that was not really a heart attack? Just saying. Because allegedly, Tammy Daybell was thought to have died of natural causes. And allegedly her children did not want an autopsy. And now her death has been ruled a homicide by asphyxiation. So she was murdered, allegedly by Mr. Daybell, Chad, and conspired by Miss Lori Vallow Daybell. Who is Lori Vallow? Was she living a double life? Was she pretending to be this happy-go-lucky person? A woman of God, allegedly great mother, but something went terribly wrong. Something became inside of her psyche, where she was already disturbed and no one knew. If you need verification for the information I brought you pertaining to filicide, Wikipedia is the source. I'm going to take you over to my community page, and I'm going to read you the answers from the polls. Does Chad Daybell believe the religious rhetoric he spun to Lori and others? 32% of you said yes, 50% of you said no, 18% of you said maybe. Do you think Chad and Lori really believe they were chosen by God to lead in the second coming and that their family members were zombies? 29% of you said yes, 43% of you said no, 29% of you said used as a farce to murder family. So it's a tie between yes and used as a farce to murder the family. Did Lori Vallow Daybell murder or assist in the deaths and or discarments of her children? 95% of you said yes. 3% of you said no. 2% of you not sure. Very interesting. Did Miss Gibbs' testimony help the jury believe Lori was involved in her family's murders? 85% of you said yes. 3% said no. 11% said not sure. What motive, plural, led Lori to murder her family? 7% of you said love for Chad. He coerced her. 8% of you said greed, Social Security checks. 2% of you said free from obligations, marriage. 9% of you said the second coming, radical religious beliefs. And then 74% of you believe all of the above. Did Chad Daybell coax Lori into thinking her family were dark spirits? 69% of you said yes. 18% of you said no. 13% of you said not sure. Was Lori Vallow mentally disturbed before she met Chad? 74% of you said yes. 15% no. 10% not sure. Feel free to go to my community board to take the said polls. 74% of you believe Lori Vallow Daybell was disturbed before meeting Chad Daybell. We have new mind-blowing information that has been released from the court proceedings that transpired this week pertaining to the emails and texts going back and forth between Lori and the late Charles Vallow. Email sent from Lori to Chad. Why was she sending him these emails? You will hear in the text messages that the late Charles was accusing her of having an affair, threatening to tell Miss Tammy, threatening to tell Chad, asking her to quit spending money on his credit cards, accusing her of being a homewrecker. Had she had affairs before? Because when I listened to this commentary briefly yesterday, for some reason I said to myself, she's done this before perhaps. And you also hear him in text messages saying that he's never cheated on her, that he had been faithful to her from day one. Was that true? Was Charles Vallow faithful to Lori? And even if he was not, there's still no sane reason to murder him unless it was in self-defense. And I think we already know that she and Alex, her late brother, orchestrated that altercation at that house to murder him. And the house was empty for those who have been following the content pertaining to this diabolical story. So I want you to focus on that. I believe that house, it had no furniture inside of it. So why would people be arguing inside of an empty home? Orchestrated. Let's hear the information pertaining to the emails. Thank you for joining me.
Detective Duncan, do you recognize the message in front of you?
I do.
And do you recall what email this was associated with?
This is an email associated with kkwalker75@yahoo.com.
Was a copy of this located on Charles Vallow's device?
Yes, it was.
Could you read that for the jury?
Could it be possible to have a hard copy to look at?
If the court will allow it, I do have a hard copy available.
Yes, that's fine, as long as it comports with what's being displayed on the screen.
And I will indicate for the record, the printout that the detective is being handed was printed directly from the PowerPoint.
Okay, with that in mind then, and obviously we can follow along with what's on the screen. I'll allow him to have that printed copy and review from that.
Amazing news for Tennessee residents.
Sorry about that.
So we can follow along with what's on the screen. I'll allow him to have that printed copy and review from that.
So the email reads as follows. Hello, Chad. I hope you are doing well. This is Charles Vallow from Arizona. We really enjoyed having you stay with us back in November when you came to the Preparing the People conference. I appreciated you taking the time to talk to me about the book I've been working on. Well, more than 6 months later, I still haven't made much progress on it, but I feel an urgency to get it done. As the managing partner of Right Planning Group, I'm going to have the opportunity various life and shares the principle. Phone call or video chat, mainly because I would like you to read through some of my journals and explain to me how the publishing industry works. It would help me know whether I truly have a book in me and whether you want to team up on it. I played minor league baseball and have had plenty of stories that my audience could relate to, along with the knowledge I've gained running my own company. So I do feel the book would contain valuable information even beyond the convention circuit. I'm out of town until Sunday, but I would gladly fly you down here early next week before the holiday and cover your expenses. You could stay at our guest room like before, or in a hotel if you prefer. I hate to take you away from your family, but I know this book is vital to my speaking success. I understand if you don't want to take part in the project, but I would definitely make it worth your time. With admiration, Charles.
And you indicate this came from an email, kkwalker75@yahoo.com?
That is correct.
Did you do any kind of investigation to try to determine who the owner of that account was?
So I authored a search warrant to Yahoo. I was able to obtain the subscriber information for this account of kkwalker75@yahoo.com. The name associated with the account was Karen Walker. The IP address or the internet provider address associated with the account came back to Katy, an area of Katy, Texas. Also, the phone number associated with the account came back to Lori Vallow. The date of birth on the account came back to a variation of Lori Vallow's date of birth.
Was there any indication that this email account was linked to Charles Vallow?
There is no indication.
In going through
4 minutes into this information, variations of birth dates pertaining to Lori Vallow, Daybell. No indication that Charles, the late Charles Vallow, sent this email to Chad Daybell. Hello, Suddenly. Thank you for joining me, sweetie. Hello, Boise. Thank you. Why would Lori be sending this email? And it's written very well, I must say. This is why you know a lot of smart people are, they're crazy. That's been said about a lot of smart people. They don't have common sense and they're crazy as the Dickens. Very well written email, I must say that. And obviously, they're alluding to the fact that Lori wrote this. What I'm trying to wrap my head around is what was the point of this email? Why not just text a person? You obviously had been talking to Chad, both of you back and forth. So what was the purpose? Hello, Lily. Yes, I am. Thank you. Likewise. What was the purpose of this email? Because why make up all this stuff if you're already talking to the person? So we have to ask ourselves the sequence of the email. Was this in the beginning? She was trying to get attention from this man, or they had already been seeing one another? Because if they'd already been seeing one another, talking, and had built some type of affection for one another, there would have been no point in writing this and pretending to be the husband, unless she was trying to lure this man to come see her and meet her husband and play it off and have him visit the house. But you will later learn that this was all a farce. So I'm trying to get an understanding of what was the purpose of this email and the sequence of the email. Was it shortly after she met him? When she first met him? When did she start liking him? Okay, somebody. My thing is, if it was a con job, then that means she'd have to have known that Tammy would read the email, or they shared the same email. That's what I'm trying to get an understanding. What was the purpose of making up all this information if you're already liking the person or you've expressed feelings for the person? So that's what I'm trying to understand. I'm trying to get a sequence of where she and Chad were mentally and physically when this email was sent to Mr. Daybell. Thank you for joining me. East Idaho News is the source of this information you're listening to.
There is no indication.
In going through Charles' phone further, did you locate anything regarding whether or not Charles actually sent that email?
There's nothing to indicate that Charles sent this email to or from his device, KK Walker. However, he did forward this email to Adam, Lori's brother, as well as discuss the email with Lori through text messages.
All right. You hear now that the email was shared with the brother. I'm assuming this is Mr. Alex, the decedent. He doesn't verify which brother thus far. So what was the purpose of sending it to the brother? Lori, why would you send it to the brother? Was a scheme coming into fruition with the sending this message to Chad and to the brother? I'm just very confused at this. And then it says his device. So one would say, well, he had to send it if it was his device. But you hear the detective say he doesn't have any information saying or proving that Charles even wrote or sent it, but it was forwarded to the brother. This is very strange information.
And looking at the next page there.
Yes.
Are these some of the messages that you were referring to?
Yes. Charles had discovered this email on June 29th of 2019. He then forwarded it to Adam and then confronted Lori about this email that was sent. Based on my observations of Charles's email or his accounts that were analyzed, like I said, there's no indication that this came from Charles' account, was created by Charles or sent to Chad. To the best of my knowledge, looking through Charles' information, he had no relationship with Chad Daybell at all.
And if you could, would you read the messages on those and just indicate who they were coming to and going,
Yes.
they were being sent to?
The first one is Charles to Lori. It was time-stamped June 29th, 2019 at 5:51 a.m. The UTC is a universal coordinated time, and the -7 is done to show that would be the Arizona time. So at 5:51 on June 29th, 2019, it says, "Is he with whom you're having an affair? He did not stay with us in Arizona in November. Who are you lying to now? Trying to destroy another family? You're evil, period. I may take JJ back to Houston unless you have it."
This is where I got this vision yesterday. These words right here by the late Charles Vallow. Are you trying to destroy another family? So was he referring to one, their family that has already been destroyed, was currently being destroyed, or she's done this before? Ding. Because that's what I thought of when the detective read these texts. You're trying to destroy another family. When I think of another, when a person using that context, see, Because see, the dead tells no tales, but this one has this. He's telling some few tales here in these texts, back and forth. Lori, this would make me think. Can't say because he's no longer allowed to speak for himself, and Lori's definitely not going to tell us the truth. Was he referring to the fact that she's done this before, that she's had an affair or an entanglement with another man while they were married, that he has seen this type of texting going on between she and whomever? Because we have to ask ourselves the obvious. Who was she sending this email to? And for what reason, if they were already entangled, she and Chad? So who was this supposed to be going to? Because like I said, if she's already entangled with Chad, there's no need to be sending this type of email, because if you two are already in cahoots, liking each other, whatever, unless it's just trying to talk in as a decoy conversation. Is this a act of decoy conversation? That they've been together. How about that? They've been together. So she's writing this email as if it's the husband saying, hey, how you doing? I'm trying to do this book. I need your help, blah, blah, blah. Thanks for visiting and da-da-da-da-da. But really it's how she feels for him. And she's talking as if she is the husband, but she's basically relaying her feelings for Chad, third person. Is that what this between Lori and Chad, of her talking in third person, fourth person? Because that's the only thing I can get out of this email, is that she basically was fluffing him up, but not wanting to say it in her own words, such as, I think you're great. I think you're talented. I really like you. I care for you. She's talking as if it's somebody else wanting this person's help. I don't know. Sometimes, I'm starting to believe possibly girlfriend was messed up, yes, before Chad came along. Because to be this easily coerced a few months after meeting someone, to believe in all this doomsday rhetoric and second coming and they were the chosen ones, you'd already have to have had some issues beforehand. That's my opinion. And I know a lot of people can be easily coerced to do things. And a lot of times people, we as humans, we do things because we like people or we love people or in love with them, infatuated, obsessed, whatever word you want to use. But it usually leads to dire situations. And in this case, it led to 4 murders, unfortunately. Let's finish this conversation.
I may take JJ back to Houston unless you have a great explanation for all of this. I will not let him be a party to your apostasy. Charles to Lori again at 6:04 a.m. Just so you know, I have Tammy's, Chad's wife's, email address. I will send a copy of my email you sent to KK Walker. Tammy will know what you're up to. You better explain. Charles to Lori at 6:10. I now have Tammy Daybell's cell number. I'll text her a copy of the letter and an explanation of what you're up to. You have till noon your time to explain, or I'm sending via text and email to her. At 6:55, Charles sends Lori a message. I'm sure you are up by now. You have until 10 a.m. your time to respond, or I send the emails and texts to Tammy. Charles to Lori at 12:23 p.m. Just so you and Chad know, I am going to talk to Tammy in person if I have to. I've already emailed and texted her. Your game is up. Charles to
Tammy, Charles. did they talk pertaining to that? 1 minute he's talking, upset